Dave Whitty Show. I'm your host, Dave Whitty. Folks, thanks again for tuning in. Episode 15 is here. First off, I want to say a big thanks to Claire Follett for coming on last week. We had a great chat. I mean, super interesting to get a perspective from a young person's point of view about the scene, about the industry. Really enjoyed that chat. I mean, if you missed it, by all means, you can find it on all my social media channels. You guys know where to find me. It's up on YouTube and up on Spotify, of course. So yeah, just a big thanks to Claire for coming on last week. Really enjoyed that chat. Got another great episode this week. I had Greg Bruce in, who is just such an interesting character. I mean, this guy is so well versed in the music industry. He has a ton of wealth of knowledge, and experience. He's played in touring bands and he's played in concert bands and he's composed for the orchestra. I mean, he just has a really cool story and he's so knowledgeable. I mean, when you chat with Greg, it's compelling. Honestly, it's just really great guy too. And I really loved having a chat with Greg. So make sure you do stick around for that chat with Greg, because he provides just so much information, and he's just a fun guy. Really great chat too. So make sure you do stick around for that one with Greg. In the world of Davey, what's going on with me this weekend? I'm not doing a whole lot. I'm actually taking the weekend off from gigging. I'm going to head out to the cabin for the weekend and just kind of relax for the May 2-4 weekend and maybe do a little trouting. We'll see what happens. But yeah, just going to take the weekend off. Had a great weekend last weekend. I did a bunch of gigs. I played at Golf Shots on Thursday. It was a lot of fun. Great little room in Mount Pearl there. Great for watching sports, as I'd mentioned on previous podcasts and previous episodes. Played there Thursday. It was a lot of fun. Did a little Friday afternoon gig at Shamrock City. They got a great fish and chip special on there. They always draw a little crowd on Friday afternoon. So, that was a lot of fun. Friday night, I actually played my last Friday night skate. I play hockey twice a week on Mondays and Fridays. And Fridays we play at the historic St. Bon's Forum here in St. John's. The arena is actually 99 years old. Next year is the 100th anniversary of the St. Bon's Forum. It's a smaller rink. We only play 4-on-4 there, but we finished up the our winter season there Friday night, and then after that I played another gig at Trinity Pub, and Trinity is a great little room for playing music. You always have people come in. They don't cover. There's no cover charge there or anything, so you have people popping in all throughout the night. I love the staff there and stuff, so it's always a lot of fun doing that gig. And Saturday evening, I played at the Brackaloo Trail Brewing Company in Bay Roberts / Spaniards Bay. Just a great little room, great brewery, lots of great beers on tap that they make there. Not a big spot at all. I think their capacity is like 50 without COVID, so it's just a real small room, but nice and intimate. Always great reactions there, and the crowd is always really happy to have some live music. They have live music every Saturday night, so make sure you do check them out. And thanks to the staff out there for treating me so well. I got to say, I really enjoyed that gig. And Sunday, of course, I was back in my regular slot at Greensleeves, which was a pretty relaxed Sunday for compared to most this Sunday. But it was a great crowd again, and I had a lot of fun. So it was another action-packed weekend full of music. So I got to say, I'm kind of looking forward to taking this weekend off and just doing a little relaxing. Definitely going to be taking in some NHL playoff hockey action. The playoffs have started, guys. These are I'm recording here on Tuesday. There's obviously a few games tonight, but the weekend was super fun to watch. It's really interesting to watch these teams play, and it's such a different feel for these playoffs because these teams have all played each other so many times throughout the regular season that they really know each other. I think every game except for one went to overtime so far. So the teams really know each other. They're competitive. Playoff hockey is just such a different beast. It's such a different game to watch. It's so much more physical. Everyone is so much more aggressive. It really, it amps it up. And on top of that, in the U.S. right now, there's fans allowed in the stadiums, and I can't say how much fun it is to watch a game with fans back in the stadium. It just adds such a different level of excitement that it's really great to see. It looks like it's going to be that way, especially south of the border for the majority of the playoffs. It's going to be interesting to see how the Final Four unfolds. Obviously, we have Toronto playing Montreal here Thursday, Saturday, and forward, obviously, and Edmonton are going to be playing Winnipeg. So both those teams are going to face each other up here in Canada. And so both of them matchups happen in Canada. And then the winner of those two matchups will play against each other in Canada, and then it's kind of unforeseen what's going to happen. It's going to be interesting to see how that all unfolds. If the Canadian teams are going to have to go south of the border and maybe play in a different arena down there, are they going to bubble up? Are they going to are the U.S. teams going to be allowed into Canada? So I mean, it's going to be really interesting to see how that unfolds. I'm definitely looking forward to it, and I'm just looking forward to the NHL playoff action. I mean, it's an exciting time for hockey. It's an exciting time as a Leafs fan. I mean, Leafs and Habs first round, you couldn't have drawn it up any better. I mean, especially as a Newfoundlander, guys. Like if you're listening from outside of Newfoundland, you have no idea how big the rivalry is here, especially in Newfoundland, between Leafs fans and Habs fans. So it's going to be really exciting. I'm probably not going to get together with too many people to watch because I'm nervous. I'm always nervous. I mean, the Leafs have a history in the first round, and man, it would be nice to see them just get that off their back. I think we got the right team put together. The goaltending's been good, so it looks like they're starting Jack Campbell game one. It's been his net, for the majority of the season now, so he gets his shot. It's going to be really, really interesting seeing Carey Price play for the Laval Rocket, which is their AHL affiliate last night, trying to get some reps in. So, anything can happen. Carey Price has been arguably the best goaltender in the world, so he'll be back. So, hopefully we don't run into a hot Carey Price because that would be, it would be scary, no doubt about it. But I mean, lots of the other series has been great. The Boston-Washington series is great. Just got so many storylines. I mean, you got Zdeno Chara who's playing against Boston. Boston basically gave up on him, and he's playing for Washington now. Really, really neat. I mean, you got the Pittsburgh Penguins who are arguably maybe on their last run as that core group. I mean, with Crosby and Malkin, and I mean, those guys are. They're not getting any younger. They're not old per se, but I mean, that's their core group. The Battle of Florida has been super exciting. I mean, that game on Sunday was one of the best hockey games I've ever seen. Tampa Bay versus Florida. It was super entertaining, exciting, fast. Fans were in the building. I mean, it was really, really cool. Got to catch the Colorado game last night after our Monday night skate, because I play hockey on Monday nights as well. And last night was the last one for Mondays for the season. I want to give a big shout out to all the guys who play hockey with on Monday, and an extra shout out to Mr. Andrew Kellaway for organizing hockey for us guys all winter long. And it's been challenging, I'm sure, with COVID and just getting numbers out, and it's been a lot of fun. I've been so happy to get back into playing hockey the last couple of years. It's a great bit of exercise. It's great getting to see the guys on a couple times on a weekly basis, and just getting out for a skate. It's a lot of fun. So, but yes, I did manage to catch the Colorado St. Louis game last night. We've got a Newfoundlander who's playing fourth line for Colorado, Alex Newhook. Played just a few games in the regular season, and now he's suiting up for the playoffs. So I'm definitely keeping my eye on Colorado. I actually picked the Islanders in a little playoff pool I'm in with some friends from Kelly's Pub. So I got the Islanders. So right now, I'm rolling with the Leafs, the Islanders, because there's a few dollars on it, and I'd love to see Colorado make a little run. I mean, I like a lot of their guys too: Rantanen, McKinnon, Landeskog, Cale Makar. Our guy Naz Kadri's there, and of course, Newfoundland native Alex Newhook. So really looking forward to watching all that unfold. Basketball playoffs are here as well. The play-in series looks like it's going to be the Lakers versus LeBron James and the Los Angeles Lakers versus Steph Curry and the Golden State Warriors in essentially a one-game playoff. I think the way the play-in tournament works is the 7 and 8 seed play each other, and the winner becomes the 7 seed, and then the 9 and 10 teams play each other, and the winner of that team will face the loser of the 7 and 8 game to take the 8th seed. So kind of a weird setup that they have going on there, but nonetheless, it's very, very interesting. So yeah, looking forward to both those. I mean, playoff sports is unreal. It makes the game's so much more exciting. So definitely going to be checking out a bit of sports this weekend. Probably going to be hitting the links myself, maybe on Friday or Saturday. Looking like going to be a great weekend here in on the East Coast, on the Avalon. Pretty double-digit temperatures, and so I'm probably hitting the links maybe Friday or Saturday. Hitting maybe Pitcher's Pond out towards the Cabin Way, and They got a great little 9-hole out there, super cheap to play, and you can go out and just bang out 9 holes in a couple hours, so it's a lot of fun. But I will be back Sunday for my gig at Greensleeves on Sunday evening. It's a long weekend this weekend, so I'd be willing. It's going to be pretty busy night there at Greensleeves on Sunday. So if you're out around the weekend and you're looking for some tunes, come and check me out Sunday night at Greensleeves. Got my COVID vaccine booked, getting the vaccine first dose on the 7th of June. I think today, as of Tuesday, May 18th, they open it up, the eligibility for anybody over the age of 12. So really things are getting rolling. Really looking forward to being able to maybe get some normalcy going in the world and get out there and maybe hopefully do some traveling sooner than later, because I think everybody's got a bit of a travel bug going on. And so, yeah. But yeah, that's pretty much what's going on in my world, guys. I want you to stick around for a great interview with Greg Bruce. I mean, just a really, really fun chat. Greg is so cool, and he's so knowledgeable. It's almost intimidating in a way, because we both come from such vastly different worlds musically. I mean, he's just super smart, but I really love the chat, and he's such a great guy too. So, with that being said, I'm going to flick it over. So make sure you stick around for a great interview with Greg Bruce. And I'd like to welcome Greg Bruce to the podcast. Thanks for coming on, Greg. How you doing today?
I'm doing grand, Dave. How you doing?
I'm doing good, man. Thanks very much. I'm a little tired this morning. I had my final skate of the year last night. I play hockey on Monday nights with a bunch of guys from Mount Pearl, and they're taking the ice off this week. So last night was our first one. So we went a little hard last night, working real hard. And of course, in typical fashion, we ended in a 7-7 draw. So it was a great competitiveness out there. It was a good laugh. But I'm feeling a little sore in the legs this morning, but not too bad. How you doing, man? I know you're in Newfoundland right now. And I think we were chatting there the other night, and you're heading back to Toronto soon, right?
Yes, indeed. So I'm, we're flying back tomorrow, which is a Wednesday. Yeah.
Right on. Yeah. So I just wanted to, for anybody who may be unfamiliar with you, could you just give yourself a little introduction on who you are and kind of what you do?
Yeah. My name is Greg Bruce, and I'm from St. John's here in Newfoundland and Labrador. And I'm primarily a saxophonist that I guess I've kind of like gone through the academic circuit, but I was going to say circus, but maybe it's that too. And I've kind of played in a lot of different bands here in St. John's as kind of a side person, but I also kind of lead my own projects. I'm a composer, an improviser, and currently I guess this is really the end of the third year of my time at the Doctor of Musical Arts program at the University of Toronto. So I'm kind of gone full academia, want to get that university job. I guess I figured I did enough school, and this was the missing piece to get that big gig.
Right. Yeah. No, I got to say, Greg, I mean, I've known you for quite a while. We've been on tour together. We did a couple fun trips with the Baytown guys when I was living in Toronto, and obviously we've shared the stage numerous times here in St. John's. But I gotta say, man, when I was really doing some back prep on you and doing some research on you, I was absolutely mind blown at the stuff that you're involved in, man. You are an incredible guy. Like the stuff myself and Taylor were sat down last night and we were just going over some of the notes that I had prepared for this today. And I was in awe at the stuff that you were involved in. It's very impressive. I have to say, you're very innovative. You're very, you're brilliant. I mean, you are, I'm not blowing smoke, but man,
stop. I'm blushing.
No, I had to say I was pleasantly, I mean, I knew what you're involved in. I knew the stuff that you do, but I was pleasantly surprised it was such a breath of fresh air to really dig into that last night. So, I do want to dig into a bunch of that stuff. I mean, sure. You're involved in a ton of different stuff, like ton of different projects. I mean, like you mentioned, you've played in countless bands here, obviously in the city, and you do composing work, you do all kinds of different stuff. You're involved in the breakdancing scene. I mean, Wonderbolt Circus. I mean, there's been so many different things that you've been involved in that are very, very neat and very creative. And I know it goes without being said. It's very, very impressive. But I kind of want to start in some of the early days, like when you first got started playing music, and I want you to talk a little bit about that if you can. Starting to play saxophone and getting involved in music and making the choice to attend music school. If you could maybe describe that a little.
Yeah, sure. Well, it's there's a pretty good story with how I started to play saxophone, I guess. So I went to Gould's Elementary, and they had the school band program, as many schools do, and they start in grade 5, which is great. I mean, you play recorder or whatever, right? And I was an okay recorder player, but who wants to admit that? Yeah, grade 5 rolled around, and they're like, all right, you got to pick your like, your top 3 instruments that you want to play. And I was like, all right, number 1, saxophone. And I guess why I really wanted saxophone, I don't know. Like back then, I suppose like they were playing like Bruce Springsteen and like Stevie Wonder on like NTV, like in between the shows.
Oh yeah,
they would play these musical
exactly,
clips. Yeah, like live concert, like clips from like live concerts and stuff like that. And I guess that's just a vivid memory I have of like seeing these little clips and being like, wow, like the saxophone, right? It's so cool. So I put number 1, saxophone. Number 2, clarinet. I was like, okay, it's, similar, I guess, I thought then. And then number 3, nothing. Like I was like, I was
sax, clarinet, or nothing.
That's right. That's
either one of these or I'm not doing anything.
And really, I was more committed than that. So they're like, okay, clarinet. And I'm like, I'm out. I'm like, no. So they knew I was serious about it. And so in grade 6, they're like, okay, we better put him on saxophone. And so they did. And so here it is, whatever, 20, however many years later that I'm still playing saxophone. So, back then, in school concert bands, it's like, I guess it depends on what school you're at, but like the level, it's not like super intense or whatever. You kind of learn the basics. You get to play with other people. I mean, there's lots of great things you learn about kind of music and playing a concert band. You kind of get to learn the basics. And then in high school, I ended up playing in a kind of like a rock band that we were called Subject to Change. So we were playing at places like McMurdo's, like before they took the ceiling out, and Callio's, and anyways, so it was myself and Brad Kilpatrick, who's a drummer in Toronto, and this is embarrassing. Justin. What's Justin's last name? Anyways, Justin was singing, and Rajiv, the bass player, who's a doctor now. So we were playing. It was basically a glorified Dave Matthews cover band, and so that was super fun. And then I guess I don't know. I liked. Well, I suppose a big moment for me, kind of in those high school years, was the Avalon East District Band, and this was like a kind of like, I don't know, an elite or like an advanced concert band. And I had auditioned for it in grade 11 and didn't get in. And then in grade 12, I ended up getting in. Robbed. But for me, like being in the groups I was in, like I went to Bishops, and I was in the Booth Bishops concert band. And like by my last year, it was like kind of had really improved a lot. But I was playing in that band when I was in junior high as well, and so like the level that it was making music at wasn't super high. Like I was, for me, I kind of enjoyed practicing the saxophone. I kind of knew that when I was kind of started high school. So if you just did a little bit like every day, then you were probably better than everyone else, right? It's not like it wasn't a high bar. Mm-hmm. So I didn't really. Yeah, like I definitely didn't deserve to get in grade 11. Like I wasn't good enough because, Holy Heart back then was like, that was just, they were like kind of the powerhouse of kind of like instrumental like band and like concert band and jazz band. Like they were kind of the pinnacle. And that's thanks to, the work of Grant Etchegaray. And anyway, so I got in district band, and I was shit baked. Like I got in, and it was like the rehearsals, it was intense. The music was, I remember, being really hard, And I had this sense for like the first time that, okay, I'm in this group. You know, it was a massive group, like whatever, like 60 people or something. And it's like everyone, like really good players, and you know, people who have gone on into wonderful music careers, like my buddy Sean Rice, who's a clarinetist who we kind of did our undergrad together, and he's now plays clarinet with the National Arts Center Orchestra. So this was the kind of caliber of kind of the, you know, the best of the best kind of in and around St. John's of instrumental players. Anyways, I was really nervous, but that kind of being in that group was like, okay, it kind of showed me kind of like this next level. Okay, you can't just spend a little bit of time on your instrument every day. It's like, this music is hard. You have to learn how to kind of practice, and you have to be kind of a bit more disciplined, and you have to be ready for rehearsal. You know, you have to be ready to perform this music kind of in rehearsal. You're not learning it like every, you know, like in school band, you know, kind of people show up and learn the music in rehearsal. But this was like, no, you actually had to kind of know it already, and then you can really make good music if you show up to rehearsal with your music learned, right? It's not a practice, it's a rehearsal. And then you know, I feel like that was a really good experience. And Grant Etchegaray actually, I you know, I thought, okay, like I really like music. Like it was kind of late, like grade 12, like realizing, oh, I'm really passionate about this. Like I enjoy practicing, so that's important. If you don't like practicing, don't go to music school. Like it's a bit of advice there. And yeah, so I thought, okay, I'm going to do a year of like general studies or whatever, and then at MUN, and then you know, do an audition. And Grant, you know, I kind of mentioned this to Grant. He was like, no, like, come on now, like you should be auditioning. And he ended up getting me a really late audition, like in the summer. And you know, Grant is one of these people that, you know, if he has his eye on something, he gets what he wants. And he got me an audition, and I don't know how, but I got in. I mean, I was the pits. I mean, really, you know, there's one thing playing hard concert band music when you're one of like whatever 12 saxophones, and then there's like playing classical solo saxophone repertoire. Is it something I said?
No, keep going. Don't worry about that.
Yeah. So anyway, that's a really big difference. And you know, I had the great fortune to kind of get into music school and start my studies with the late Paul Benza, who, you know, at the time, you know, I didn't know him and he didn't know me, but we, you know, yeah, it was a really hard first year. Like I think in my practical lessons, like your lessons are like a course in music school, right? And so in my first semester, that was like, you know, I think I got the first B in my life or something like that. Like it was, you know, it was really challenging. Mm-hmm. And, but you know, it was a wonderful kind of introduction to the world of music in at Memorial, and studying with Paul, who now, like kind of looking at my career and what it's become, you know, Paul was a very kind of multi and interdisciplinary musician. Like he was a classical musician, he improvised, he composed, and you know, was interested in lots of different genres, and that's, you know, was that kind of in me, I'm sure a little bit, but also I got a lot of that from him. So anyways, that's kind of how I got my start.
Yeah, no, I mean, that's very interesting. And I'd be willing to bet that, I know you mentioned that first band, and you know, everybody's first band blows, like, you know what I mean? But I mean, but they're crucial elements to starting in music. And I mean, I know you do a lot of improv and along those lines. I mean, I'd be willing to bet that first band probably had a little bit of taste of that, which got you to do some of that. It wasn't quite as scripted as maybe, you know, the concert band was. Like, am I right in saying that?
Oh yeah, absolutely. And I mean, like, you know, playing like some really hard music on stage at like whatever, like MUN or Holy Heart Auditorium with a huge band, like playing some, you know, some like Holst, like the Planets by Holst or something, like that has a certain, you know, you get something from that. But then I remember in the band, like we had some night at McMurdo's where like we were introduced by Big Tom, was that the guy's name?
Yep.
Yeah, we were introduced by him, and the place was packed, and the, you know, the crowd was, and so like that's a whole different thing, you know. And to be kind of a cog or like, you know, kind of like a part of a greater whole, like that, that's a certain set of, you know, skills, and you get something out of it. But then to be like, to blow a ripping solo and have people cheer, and like you're kind of like kind of a larger part of a, you know, of a whatever, a 4 or 5 piece band, and then you know, that's a different feeling. And then like, you know, playing a song you wrote where the line is kind of set, and then figuring out, okay, how do I improvise a good solo and kind of be in the moment, like, yeah, all those things. Like, I guess at the time I didn't really realize, or didn't maybe think that these were like really separate things. And some people, like some classical musicians like today, don't improvise at all, or like people who might take a lead break, like they might kind of write it out first. Like, not everyone is into improvising, but I was kind of, I don't know, I guess I didn't know enough to really think about them as really separate things. But I was just interested in kind of having these varied experiences. So, and I think I'm still doing that. Like, and so that's funny that I don't really put things in really separate like silos in terms of what I do musically. I really feel that kind of exploring different musical avenues, they all influence one another. And that's been the constant, I guess, in my career. Like, I have done a lot of different things, but the constant is this searching for newness and trying something different.
Yeah, you definitely do that, no doubt. Because I want to talk about what you've been working on in Toronto, but I want to talk about that a little later, because it's very interesting what I dug up on you, and kind of what you're doing in Toronto. I mean, it's unique. And anyways, we're going to talk about that in a little bit. I still have a few other questions beforehand before you. On your website, Greg, you describe yourself as a musical anarchist. Can you explain this?
Yeah. So I think a lot of people think when they hear anarchy, they think like it's like chaos. But really, like in the kind of political and philosophical sense, it just means like no hierarchy. Like, not saying like this idea or this skill or this thing or person is somehow like higher or more important than someone else. So I think that's, you know, I mean, the bio game, writing your bio is tough, and I don't think it gets any easier like the longer you go, because you're like, well, what do I do, and how do I explain it in a way that is like interesting, that's like honest but still interesting, and like, so anyways, so it's
tough. There's no doubt about that. It's probably one of the toughest things as an artist, or, you know, as anybody, I would think, you know, no matter what kind of field of work you work in, writing a bio about yourself is basically torture, because like you mentioned, you're trying to, you know, come across as who you are. You want to be authentic, and you want to, but you also want to explain the stuff that you're involved in and what you've done in your career. But you also don't want to make it 9 pages long. And I mean, you could go on and on and on. So it is a challenging thing, but I love that line, musical anarchist. So yeah. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off there.
Yeah, but exactly what you said, like writing a bio, like trying to make yourself sound exciting is torture, because you're like, oh, you know, I just don't want to say that, right? But so that line actually came from my partner, Keely Whitelaw. So she did a show. We kind of did a show together in December where, like, she performed. She's a circus aerialist, and she and a bunch of her students and kind of colleagues performed, and then I kind of like put a band together, and we kind of closed out the night with a short set of music. And this is at Velvet, formerly Junctions, formerly McMurdo's. But anyways, so she was doing these little bios for all the performers, and she had like just a few lines, and like that was kind of one of the lines that she described me. And so that's perfect. So musicians, if you have someone that knows you really well, like get them to write a couple of lines about you, because they're gonna say something, like because they think about you in a way that you might not think about yourself.
Exactly.
But it might be accurate, you know? So that's where I got that line. And anyways, it kind of goes back to this thread throughout my career, my thinking, and my kind of like approach to creative things, is that I don't really say, okay, well, playing like a saxophone concerto is somehow like better or more important than, you know, playing a blues at a jam, or like composing for, I don't know, composing for some brand new like electroacoustic saxophone system is like, you know, am I going to do that and not play Balkan folk tunes? Like no, like I can't really like, or I won't, or I don't want to like kind of settle on one thing. And I think that, I don't know, like I've seen people kind of around me, like other musicians in all different kinds of fields and in walks of musical life. And you know, some people kind of focus in, they kind of find their niche or whatever, and then they follow that. But for me, it's really just been about, yeah, I'm still exploring, and that, I think that kind of anarchistic, I don't know the word, but that, you know, not feeling like one thing is more important than the other has been, yeah, that's kind of a theme.
Right. And like, I think you mean like, you know, essentially kind of pegging yourself to a genre, like, you know what I mean? And sense that you like to be involved in different projects and different genres, different styles of songs. I mean, that's the, and that's, I think that's the way you keep learning and you keep exploring. Like you mentioned, you know, it obviously it keeps it interesting for yourself, but you're always learning. Then I'm assuming, you know, you're always learning different styles, techniques. I mean, it all goes hand in hand, no doubt. Greg, you're currently enrolled University of Toronto. Can you talk about a little bit about what you've been studying? And one other thing I wanted to ask you too about university, how's it about the challenges you've kind of faced, you know, with COVID? I mean, everybody's kind of faced this. I mean, one thing about COVID, it definitely gives you a little bit to talk about, especially on these podcasts, because everybody can relate to it. Everybody's feeling it. Everybody's done it. So, you know, just what are some of the challenges you faced, you know, during over the last year and a half?
Right. So like I said, like I'm in my kind of finishing my third year of the program, and it's likely going to take me 4 or 5 years to fully complete. And the program, and the reason why it takes so long is because there's a whole performance side of it. So basically, I have to do kind of 3 creative projects, which for the most part people do just recitals. But I've done a lecture recital where I was kind of talking about my research and performed music that's involved in my research. And then I'm doing a recital coming up in June, and I think my third thing is going to be recording. So that's like one side of the degree. Then the other side is you have to write a thesis. You have to write basically a book, a small book on your topic. So that's why you really need 4 or 5 years to do that, as you can imagine. So anyways, I'm in my third year, and the coursework that you do is really your first 2 years. So I was lucky in that by the time, you know, when Toronto locked down in like March or April of last year, like I had all my coursework done. So I didn't necessarily need to be into school to kind of like, so when you're done your coursework, it's kind of completely like an independent study at that point. So, you know, I could still take some lessons in person. You know, I'm taking composition lessons over Zoom, and basically it's just like reading, composing, and practicing. And I was still, I guess when they gave students access to the university, like after the lockdown, because I'm a grad student, I was able to kind of be given a room. So really, like for me, like it was, I mean, I suppose the lockdown was challenging, and being in Toronto, like we're in our little tiny, you know, 1-bedroom apartment, and actually I had just flown back from Arizona, like when they put the lockdown in place, and because I was presenting at a conference down there, and anyways, and so really when all this stuff about COVID being in North America, saying, geez, you know, I was in this really busy, like flying out of Phoenix, like super busy airport. And so we said, well, I need to isolate. So I was just in, I like didn't take out the recycling, like in our apartment, like up on the 7th floor of our apartment building in downtown Toronto. Like I didn't leave. So, you know, that has challenges. And of course, when things, you know, when it was clear I wasn't sick, yeah, so those first few months it was challenging, but basically I ended up like I was able to rent some stuff from Long McQuaid and kind of try some kind of experimental like recording and improvising stuff, because it wasn't really, you know, you're in an apartment surrounded by families, you know, I can't be practicing, you know, 6 hours a day or whatever. Actually, there's a clause in our lease that you can't play more than 2 hours a day. So I was like, okay, like I can't actually get anything done, like really like learn hard repertoire in 2 hours a day. So I was like, okay, I'm going to improvise and record and edit video and kind of do that. So it was like, I think the theme, or a lot of people have found that the lockdowns and this pandemic, it's had its challenges, but also kind of presented opportunities or forced us to maybe think and act in ways that we normally wouldn't have. So that kind of initial period, I felt, kind of mentally and socially maybe like having its challenges, but creatively, because I just decided to go in this, to do something a little bit different with the time, then it was quite fruitful. And then after that, in August, I was given access to the university. So basically, I had my own room at the university where I could just go in and whatever. I was just in there every day, and that's what I needed to do to progress in the program. And I could do my reading and writing and stuff at home. And so and I have some hermetic like qualities. I'm not. Yeah, I like being social and I like going out and everything like that. But for kind of long stretches of time, I am happy just to have a really simple routine of just, hey, if it's our apartment and then one other place I can go to that I can kind of be creative, then that's then that's enough. So, yeah.
Yeah, no, it's interesting. I've been finding a kind of a pattern actually. With people I've been interviewing on these podcasts. I always like to talk about COVID situation. I mean, and essentially, what positives basically people have brought out of this, and you nailed it without me even asking you. It forced you to be a little creative in different ways that, I mean, maybe not forced you, but just why not? I mean, you had nothing.
That's right.
You hadn't, nothing really else to do. So why not try out some improvisation? Why not try out some editing of video stuff maybe you're not too familiar with? Similar to me starting this podcast is exactly what it was. I had no idea how to edit audio, how to edit video, how to interview people. I mean, and it's all been a learning process, but it's really forced me to try something different. And I'm obviously thrilled that I did that. And I'd be willing to bet that most people have found some form of especially creative people. I mean, people they just crack up eventually. You know what I mean? Like you got to have some type of creative outlet, especially if you're used to performing or, being around people or just doing different types of creative things, So that's very interesting how it's definitely made people, kind of do some different things. One thing I mentioned, or I noticed, Greg, as well, you're part of the union at the university. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Oh yeah. So I've been kind of involved in the labor movement for a number of years, and
Because you're involved in St. John's here as well in Newfoundland, right?
Well, yeah, like I did my my term as president of the Newfoundland and Labrador Musicians Association, and that's a local 820 of the American Federation of Musicians of the United States and Canada. So it's called CFM, Canadian Federation of Musicians, or AFM. It's kind of all the same thing. So yeah, so I was kind of on the executive of that organization for a little while, and then there was an opportunity, and I kind of took it to be president. And it's a small local. I mean that's a whole kind of like the music industry and kind of music as work and music as labor, like that's a really big topic that I'm happy to talk about. But anyways, so when I became president of that organization, I really thought like, well, what's one place that we can really like kind of change, like positively affect the kind of musical work culture here in St. John's? And I thought, the orchestra here isn't unionized, and many orchestras across the nation are. And so I started setting up town halls and info sessions and talking with orchestra members, and started a drive to unionize. And it happened not while I was president, but a year or two after I had done my term, because I was moving to Toronto. And so the wonderful I gotta give a shout out to Rosalind McPhail, who's just been the executive director there for years. Like, she is the bedrock of that organization. And and basically signing the collective agreement with their employer. Now all the orchestra musicians, they know how many sessions they'll have in a year. They get their music at a certain time. The kind of protocols for hiring and firing and all that. That's all set. I mean, basically, it was kind of a regularly performing professional organization without the infrastructure in place of like having contracts and things like that. And kind of like we know that as people who are like bar musicians and who play kind of in rock bands and stuff like that, like the music kind of industry is so informal here in St. John's, and that has its advantages but also has its disadvantages. And so like the idea so I think like that, because music is such an ingrained part of the culture here in Newfoundland and Labrador, like when people move from being like whatever, playing at home in your kitchen or at parties or whatever, to like playing in a bar, often it's like people don't really think about it any differently. But of course, if you're trying to make a career of it, then, you know, having certain things in place are, you know, is really beneficial. So anyways, when I went up to University of Toronto, there was no steward, so it's like a shop steward like at any other place. So, you know, University of Toronto is a massive place. The Canadian Union of Public Employees, yeah, CUPE, like the local 3902 that I'm involved is one of the largest in the country. And it's all the TAs, all the teaching assistants, basically. And yeah, so I decided to there was no one, so I was kind of ran unopposed, and I became the steward for the Faculty of Music. And that's been a really interesting experience because, you know, the kind of like looseness or the informality of that often appears in the music industry sometimes finds its way into the university. And to me, like even with the orchestra, like I feel like the orchestra, that should be the pinnacle of like, that should be the best gig, right? Like in my mind, like you should know when you're playing, you should be paid well, you should have all the things like that people want in their careers, like stability and just clarity and all that. And I feel like universities should be the same way, but without kind of union representation, there's a lot of, you know, there's shady stuff that goes on, and so there's that side of it, but also there's also helping. You know, I get emails all the time from people that say, oh, like you know, it looks like I'm going to go over my hours, my allotted TA hours, and of course there's no overtime. So I help them to navigate that. Like it isn't always kind of confrontational. I said, well, look, you know, try and send this kind of email to the prof, or kind of. So I help. So there's that. So there's like the kind of like more activist side that is like organizing and yeah, mobilizing and bargaining with the employer. There's all that, but then there's also the kind of more informal side that just helps kind of workers in the music school just navigate their work and help find a balance between their work and their creative acts and their research and all this, and just help them help them navigate that.
Yeah, no, I mean, that's super interesting. And I mean, it's great to have a voice for the people like that. I mean, that helps a lot. And that's very neat about the orchestra here in Newfoundland. I never knew that you were kind of the driving force behind that. I mean, that's I'd be willing to bet that probably is quite a stress relief for a lot of people probably involved in that. I mean, that has to be challenging. Like you say, you know, not knowing, I know, trust me, I know all about the loosely fitted music scene and on payment terms. And I mean, it's a disaster. Honestly, it's a disaster. Yeah. There's no regulations to it. I mean, it's you fight, scratch and crawl basically for what you can get. And so it's challenging. So, I mean, for somebody, especially, you know, involved in the orchestra, who has probably done years of schooling and years and years and years and years of practice. And I'm not downplaying anybody who's in a rock band who plays in bars, because they do equally just as much. Don't get me wrong, but you've also probably invested thousands of dollars into schooling. So, I mean, to be unionized at some point and to know that your work is structured, I mean, that has to be quite a relief off of people's backs, no doubt.
Yeah, and the thing that a big thing, other than just, let's say, the nuts and bolts of like how long your rehearsal is and how many rehearsals per gig and how many gigs you have the year. Like before the contract kind of was put in place, or the collective agreement was put in place, you know, people would think they had a gig and then told, oh yeah, that was, you know, oh, that email was wrong. There's actually no trumpet in this concert. And so people have this weekend or week of rehearsals or if it's a week or 2 weeks or whatever, booked off completely for the whole year, and then the week before they find out, oh no, that's you're not in this concert, right? So that thing was happening. So that having the collective agreement in place, I think like helped that. But then the big thing is that now the players get pension paid on their so players who like up until this point might have been playing with the orchestra for whatever 20 years, and they're not getting any pension. And I mean, this is the NSO. They've been able to weather the storm of low concert attendance and struggling orchestras. Like, it's happening across Canada. The orchestra has been able to weather that, and so, but yet the players haven't really had the benefit of like what you get in other long-term forms of employment, like with in other industries. So now people are able to build up a pension, and I, in terms of the details and everything like that, I'm not sure, but that's part of it now. So that, and again, like having that reflect that being like the model and the pinnacle, and like that's what we want. I mean, hopefully there's other people see this and say, well, okay, well, if the orchestra gets to do that, like if I'm whatever being hired for a private gig or something, yeah, I can use a contract and whatever, even if you're not in the union per se, but kind of raise the bar of the thinking about musical work in Newfoundland and Labrador. That's that was my whole thought behind that process.
No, it's incredible, and hats off to you for kind of leading that force. I mean, like you mentioned, you were obviously in Toronto when it all kind of they kind of seal a deal per se,
Mm-hmm.
but I mean,
Yeah.
I know you were obviously the driving force behind it. I mean, that's hats off to you. I mean, that's incredible. Another
Yes,
cool
yeah.
thing, to get away from the schooling a bit. I know, like we've been chatting. I mean, you front your own band, basically, you know what I mean? Like, you were a composer for Ouroboros. I mean, but you've also played in like, rock ska outfits, Baytown. I mean, there's been a ton of different projects. Can you talk about some of that stuff? I mean, within St. John's and the touring scene, and kind of what the differences are between that and, kind of orchestra stuff, or concert band stuff, what the differences in those two contrasting worlds,
Sure, yeah. I mean, it's yeah, so some of the bands I've played with, like I mentioned, that the first band I was playing in, but yeah, I played in Funky Dory many years ago. We were kind of like a funk band. We played some of the classics and the standards, but we also wrote like kind of we wrote original kind of funk jazz music. So that was a lot of fun. Now that band never toured. We recorded one album, never toured, but I think that's the case with so many groups in St. John's that are writing really interesting music, have a banger live show, and there's just the huge kind of geographic and financial barrier that it takes to leave the city or leave the island, leave the province is like, so the number of bands who I think are like could be at that national or international level, which there are tons here, just never get like discovered or never make it off the island. And
it's challenging,
so,
like the like you mentioned, the geographical challenges that bands face. And then I find what happens a lot of times is that like you'll have a great band who are, like you mentioned, banger live show, writing really good originals, probably some good recordings as well. And probably by the time they get their shit together and even figure out how to get off the island, 3 members of the band have quit because they've got another job, and then life goes on. Don't get me wrong. That's the case. But I mean, that's kind of what happens, and bands kind of fizzle away. It's definitely challenging.
Yeah. So I think like, yeah, like playing, I don't know, like people who aren't musical or aren't involved in bands, like playing a band is a lot of work. And kudos to any group who lasts longer than like 5 years, because life changes, and any group who's done any touring, like it's a real it's a real slog, like being in Newfoundland. Like, it's so expensive to mount a tour, and then basically you got to be ready to be touring all the time if you want to like capitalize on your tours. It's like doing one is like nothing, right? It's like you don't get anything out of it. It's like the follow-up and then the follow-up, right? And doing all the industry conferences and doing everything like that. So So that's definitely like, I mean, I like the idea of kind of bands, and I mean and that's the great thing about St. John's is that there is such a good live music culture, that there are bands who are good that can play here and make some money. Hey, that's great. They don't necessarily need to be touring and like kind of like make it or blow up to feel like, okay, we can like play on the weekends and feel like, yeah, the money can be okay. And that was a case, like, I think so many bands follow this trajectory. Like my band Ouroboros, we started out, so we're a 5-piece band, 4 saxes and drums, and all instrumental. And we started out, like, say our first 2 years, maybe it's like, man, I remember our CD release at the Ship, for our first album, like there was a lineup like around the block to get in. Like it was rammed, and we played shows at the Fat Cat that were like that, and still, like, we're really lucky. Like we had 100 people sitting in a show at the Rock House in December. So like we're still able to have a pretty good draw. But basically, you build up some credibility, and you're playing shows and you're improving your live show and everything like that. Maybe you're doing a few industry conferences and things like that. And then if you're like, okay, now we have to start touring to like try and grow our audience or whatever. As soon as that point happens, you're like, all right, we can't take any money from the live shows. All of a sudden you go from like being successful at the local level and feeling like, okay, like I'm making some money. Then it's like, now we're making nothing. Like we're we're like getting bigger, but now we can't like pocketing the money. All has to go into the band fund to pay for plane tickets, to pay for, you got to be ready. Like, yeah, you're applying for touring grants and things like that, but you can't start booking it once you find out that you got the money. You got to like book beforehand and everything like that. So yeah, there's that whole like, that's a whole industry thing. And I think kind of being in the classical and kind of jazz world as well, like there's certainly that thinking in the jazz world. And I think especially, in Newfoundland and Labrador, like for people who are playing classical music, I think they could benefit from more of that mentality of like kind of hustling gigs and kind of growing their audience. But for whatever reason, I think it's this weird, the like interplay or the difference between kind of like academic music making versus like professional, like out in the world music making. Like there's this weird divide, and I'm someone who's kind of trying to blend the two. But a lot of people, they start making music kind of like at the academy, in the university, in the institution, and don't leave there. And for some people, they can make a career of it doing that, like teaching and just kind of being in the university kind of system. But I think there's something really lost there. Like you're not really, you're not connecting with kind of like the wider population. And so yeah. So anyways, I don't know, like my band Ouroboros, like I feel like we've done some university shows, and I think our music is like somewhat, weird in that, trying to take some like different sounds and put that in the music. I mean, jazz music has kind of done that for years, and yeah. So anyways, yeah. So that's a basic, a basic rundown. But yeah, I mean, I really enjoy touring, and even though it's a slog, but I also, like I'm presenting at conferences, and back in the day, I like won the concerto competition here, so I was like playing with the orchestra, and yeah, so like it all goes into the pot.
Yeah, no doubt,
right? Yeah.
How hilarious was that tour we went on? We were in Montreal and Toronto, and I remember we were talking about Jimmy wearing the crown or something. It was like,
oh yeah. What was he? He was the Duke. He was the Duke. He was the Duke of Agony, maybe.
Oh yeah, my God,
that's
man.
I think the Duke of Agony. Yeah.
Duke of Agony is probably one of the funniest terms I've ever heard described, especially Jimmy.
Yeah, oh yeah. He made a T-shirt of it, I think.
He did, yes.
Yeah,
right, the red shirt with the crown on it, wasn't it?
Yeah, I think it said Duke on it, maybe. I don't know.
That's so funny, man.
Yeah.
I don't want to keep you for too long. I mean, I really appreciate you taking the time today. I mean, this is a great chat. I almost like to have you on again some other time, because I feel like I have so much more left to ask you, but
Man,
Um,
I love, like a true blue Newfoundlander. I love talking.
yeah, no, and it's very interesting. I mean, I love it, but
Yeah.
um, I know you do some teaching and stuff there, Greg. A lot of teaching, I would imagine. I like, how has that been during COVID? I mean, have you been doing a lot of online stuff or in anything in person, or how's that kind of work? And
Yeah. So I think um, you know, every musician who's like playing gigs should try and teach. Like I think it's some people I know some people kind of avoid it, but in terms of like the money and the consistency and just like yeah, even if you're just you don't and I think a lot of people feel like, oh, like I'm not trained or like I haven't taken a lot of lessons. Like basically like there are all kinds of different teaching philosophies, but even if you're just taking students through what you do, that's good. That's going to really resonate with some students. And I kind of teach like, I'm not a big lesson planner, but like I consider like when someone studies with me and stays with me, they do that for like who I am and my experiences, not necessarily like every minute of the lesson being laid out and planned, having, it's like, okay, I'm bringing my whole breadth of experiences into the lesson, and that's what I'm trying to convey. So, anyways, everyone, more musicians should teach, I think. But yeah, so when I moved up to Toronto, I kind of put it out to my students here in St. John's that like, if you want to keep studying with me, we can do lessons over Skype, right? And that's before Zoom kind of blew up, right? It's Skype lessons, and so I was already like in the first, I guess like two years, year and a half of being up in Toronto, teaching Skype lessons to like half a dozen students here in St. John's. And so then when lockdown happened, it really didn't matter.
yeah, perfect. Yeah, it's just,
Yeah.
you're already riding it out. You're in the saddle there. Yeah.
Yeah. So like, I use, Google Docs and we write all the lesson notes in Google Docs so they can see it. We have a Google a Drive folder where we say, okay, you record this or you overdub your part onto this thing. Like I use books sometimes that have like the backing track CD kind of thing. And so they learn, it's almost like it's music lessons, but it's also music technology. So you learn about, like learning how to set your gain and where the mic is and how that affects the sound. And so that's part of it. But then we're just doing saxophone stuff, like beat it, whatever it is, improvising or etudes or working through a book or, we do sound, tone production, everything like that. So, I mean, there's challenges. Like there is a certain, the sound doesn't translate 100%. And there really isn't like being in the room and hearing that sound. And especially for kids, like, they're not hearing saxophone on the radio every day. So I think it's really important. Like I demonstrate a lot, and because they're not hearing like a professional saxophonist play every day of their lives. Whereas that's a big difference between like, say, like a lot of people get put in lessons because they're in band. So it's like a bit of a different thing than, like a kid who just listens to rock and roll all day and goes take guitar lessons. So in that sense, it's like, it's a bit of a different thing. So yeah, so it's been great. I mean, I enjoy it and integrate that kind of technology side to it, but it's been really good.
Yeah, no, that's interesting. I never quite thought about it like that. You're right. You know how like rock music essentially is, everybody's surrounded by that, whether you like it or not. It's on the radio. You know what I mean? If you're in a car, you hear it. You're in a grocery store, you hear it. I mean, it's
That's
just
right.
naturally around. But whereas sax music, it's not necessarily always around. So yeah, that's a great take on that. I really like that. It's really interesting. Greg, I'm not going to keep you for too much longer. Would you come back another time and have another chat with me sometime, maybe in a year or so or something like that? Maybe.
Yes, man. I'd love to. Like I just enjoy chatting and it's been great. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I'd love to catch up again in a year or so, especially when everything kind of shags off from COVID. And I'd love to get another take on how the program's been going, and I'd like to dig in a few more things because you've got a real creative mind on especially the like the workload. I remember when we were even touring, I remember kind of picking your brain on stuff, and I always found you very, very interesting. So thanks again for coming on, man. I really, really appreciate it and taking the time today. Yeah. For anybody who wants to check you out, Greg, or check out your bands, where can we find you two online?
Yeah. So I'm on Instagram. I post fairly regularly to that. My handle is Greg the Square. I'm also, you can look me up. I I post to my personal Facebook, but my Facebook page is I think at Greg Bruce Music. My website is gregbruce.ca. I haven't. I really liked your move. Like several months ago, I saw you started your YouTube channel, and you were like, "Oh, like I don't get my own channel name until you get so many subscribers." So I really like that. So I'm trying to do that. I think I only have 25 subscribers. So I think if you look up Greg, Greg the Square. I mean, if you go to my website, gregbruce.ca, you can follow the links. So I just did a concert there on Friday, and we recorded it. So I'm going to be releasing some of the tracks from that concert on YouTube and on Instagram. You get to kind of hear and see all my, like I'm posting stuff that I'm practicing. So all the weird kind of experimental stuff that I'm doing. So yeah, you can get an idea of that and kind of hear what I'm at. Yeah.
Oh, that's awesome. Thanks again, Greg. I really appreciate you coming on today, man. Safe travels back to Toronto.
Yes,
and we'll catch up soon in the near future.
Perfect. Thanks, Dave.
All right. Thanks, buddy.
All right.
Huge thanks to Greg for coming on there. I mean, I could have went on for hours, honestly. I definitely plan on having Greg back. I mean, he's just such a wealth of knowledge. It's incredible. I never even got to ask him half the questions I wanted to ask him because he's just filled with so much information, and I feel like I could just sit there and listen to him talk for days. He's just, very, very smart about, and he knows what he's talking about. He definitely knows his shit. So once again, big thanks to Greg for coming on there. Make sure you do check him out online and check out his bands. I mean, they're super fun. If you get a chance to check out a show, it's full of energy and excitement, and it's just a really great atmosphere, no doubt. That about does it for me, guys. Once again, thanks again to everybody who's tuned into the podcast, and thanks to everybody who's been sharing the episodes. Thanks for all the great feedback, and everybody who's wrote me. It's been a real pleasure, pulling these off every week. Going to be back next week. Of course, I'm going to keep these rolling as long as I can, and as long as the interesting guests keep coming at me. Love having a chat with everybody and learning about all the different sorts of things that people are up to. It's been a real delight, I got to say. Once again, make sure you do check me out on Sunday. I'll be at Greensleeves, 6:30 to 10:30, banging out some tunes, of course. And you can follow me on all my social media channels at Dave Whitty. Follow me and subscribe on YouTube, and same with Spotify as well, guys. I'm not going to bother you with any sponsor talk this week, but I am still looking for one. So if you want to hit me up, you know the rules. You know how it's going. Just give me a shout and let's chat about something. But yeah, that about does it for me, guys. My name is Dave Whitty, from downtown St. John's, Newfoundland. You guys have a good one. Peace.